Silent Hill 2, the official novel, written by Sadamu Yamashita, generously translated into English by Emily, Lady Ducky, Fitch. Chapter 6. Memories of the Lake's Shore. Part 1. On the other side of the door leading from the refrigerated warehouse lay the fog-shrouded outside world. Even after descending deeper underground time after time, somehow, James was back at ground level. If this was a delusion, then the world was running on dream physics, so something like this wouldn't be that strange at all. If this was reality, then something about this strange phenomena in Silent Hill must be distorting the laws of space. Either way, James was relieved to be free from that hellish maze. But the fact that he had killed another human being remained unchanged. Those memories still lingered, watching Eddie die before his eyes and knowing that it was all his fault. It was growing brighter outside. He could see that the warehouse was located on the shore of Toluca Lake, just off a large dock, most likely used for food transportation. From where he stood, he could even see the Silent Hill Historical Society. James walked across the pier, the wooden boards creaking underfoot, and his heart feeling unbearably empty. Taking a small rowboat, he set out across the lake. Mary. The name left his lips like a delicate winter breeze. His destination was only faintly visible on the opposite shore, the Lakeview Hotel. If only he could fill his head with pleasant memories from that place, maybe it would be enough to smother the darkness lurking in his heart. As he continued to row, staring intently through the fog, James couldn't take his mind off the feeling of his hands gripping the oars. Those hands were stained with blood. Those hideous hands had taken another's life. Something splashed against the lake's surface. Out of the corner of his vision, James could see countless pale hands reaching up from beneath the waves. They surrounded the boat, waiting for the chance to pull it down to the bottom of the lake. Come here. Come here. They beckoned. An invitation to lure James into the abyss. He tried desperately not to see them, keeping his gaze firmly locked in the direction of the hotel. It was his beacon to guide him away from temptation. James knew that if he were to look away for even a moment, he'd find himself drowning in those waters. The curtain of fog was drawn away, and the magnificent hotel slowly emerged. It shined through the white landscape, illuminated by the light of beautiful memories. James rowed faster. With its atmosphere as elegant as a refined noblewoman, the Lakeview Hotel hadn't changed in the slightest. James climbed the stone steps from the dock up to the garden. Scattered throughout the mist-dampened, vivid green grass were several stone fountains, just like when Mary and James had walked hand in hand through this garden all those years ago. Now James walked towards the entrance alone. He felt his heart beating out of control in his chest. He was going to meet Mary again soon. Still, he was full of uncertainty. What if she wasn't here either? The fear of the crushing disappointment was already beginning to spoil the mood. With these mixed feelings, he stepped into the entrance hall. The only thing that greeted James was the beam of his flashlight reflected off the glittering chandelier. He searched in the farthest, dimmest corners of the hall, but he found no signs of employees or guests. There was nothing but thick darkness. What's this? Something caught James's eye for a split second, and he shined his flashlight around the room. He looked again. On the wall just inside the entrance was a plate that depicted a map of the hotel. There was a handwritten message on the plate, as well as a circle drawn around room 312. Waiting for you. Though the handwriting seemed familiar, he couldn't say for sure. But the delicate and smooth letters were a typical trait of Mary's style. It had to be a message from her. James was sure of it. Mary really was alive, and she was waiting for him here. Now that he thought about it, he recalled that 312 was the same room the two of them had stayed in before. James went to the back of the lobby and ran up the stairs to the third floor. He walked along the row of doors. 310. 311. 312. Resisting the urge to rush inside, James took a moment to straighten up. He combed his fingers through his unkempt hair, brushed the dirt and dust off his clothes, and wiped the mud off his shoes with a handkerchief. He couldn't do much with his jacket and pants, as they were worn out and soaked with sweat from his journey, but at least now he could be a little more presentable when he stood before Mary. With a tightly clenched fist, he hesitantly knocked on the door. "Mary? It's me, James." He waited in uncomfortable silence. There was no answer. Fearing the worst, he knocked harder. The door remained firmly closed. "She must have gone out," James said, as if to reassure himself. "Yeah, that's it. After all, she probably doesn't even know I'm here right now, so she wouldn't just be sitting around alone in her room, waiting." After taking a moment to regroup, he went back down the stairs and returned to the lobby. Maybe she left a letter addressed to him at the reception desk. If she would write a message on the map by the front door, then surely she'd leave a letter at the front desk too. As before, not a single soul was in the darkened library. It was almost as if the hotel had been shut down, but it looked far from deserted. There were little signs of recent human activity everywhere. The carpet was spotless. There wasn't so much as a speck of dust anywhere. Even a half-empty coffee cup sat on a table outside the cafe. As he had suspected, there was a memo for James left at the front counter. "Mr. James Sunderland, the videotape you forgot here is being kept in the office on the first floor." He supposed it could be instructions from Mary. Perhaps it was something he'd forgotten during his stay years ago. He couldn't think of anything else. There appeared to be an office on the other side of the reception desk. Since no one came when he rang the bell, he'd have to go search for himself. He found the tape sitting on top of a desk. While he had the chance, he also borrowed a key to room 312 from the key box, planning to wait in the room for Mary's return. As he was returning to the stairs, James thought he could hear a faint melody drifting through the hall. It seemed to be coming from the restaurant on the other side of the lobby. A piano? He listened carefully. Though the player was very unskilled, it was definitely the sound of a piano. James felt a sudden stab of sorrow. Though she wasn't very good, Mary had loved to play the piano. Could it be Mary playing right now? Heart beating rapidly, he rushed into the restaurant, only to find a little girl perched on a chair and gleefully poking away at the keys. It was Laura. Noticing James, Laura looked up from the piano with a pleased smile. "Are you mad? You thought I was Mary, didn't you?" "Yeah." James was puzzled. Disappointed as he was that it wasn't Mary, he didn't know how to react to this unexpected development. Laura jumped off the chair and stood next to James. "Are you here to see Mary, too?" "Is that why you're here, Laura?" "Where is she? Do you know?" James froze with a dumbfounded expression. She was asking him where Mary was. Wasn't that the reason he had been chasing Laura around in the first place? "Wait, you mean you don't know either?" Laura shook her head. "Nope. All I know is that she's supposed to be in this town somewhere. But I'm already too tired. My legs are all stiff, and it feels like I've been looking around forever." "What makes you think she's in this town?" "'Cause she said so in her letter." "What letter?" "The one I got from Mary. You want to see?" "Of course I do. Please, please let me read it." What should I do?" she said with a chuckle. "I'm begging you, please let me see it." Laura, taken aback by seeing an adult beg so humbly, finally gave in. Mischievous though she was, she knew when to quit. Jokes and games were fun, but she wouldn't dare take it past the point that would make a grown-up seriously mad at her. She retrieved the letter from her skirt pocket. It was placed inside a snow-white envelope with, "To Laura," written on it. "It's okay for you to read it. Just don't tell Rachel, okay? Who's Rachel? She's our nurse. I took it from her locker. So, you were in the same hospital as Mary? James unfolded the stationery. My dearest Laura, I am leaving this letter with Rachel to give you after I'm gone. I'm far away now, in a quiet, beautiful place. Please forgive me for not saying goodbye before I left. Be well, Laura. Don't be too hard on the sisters. And Laura, about James. I know you hate him because you think he isn't nice to me, but please give him a chance. It's true he may be a little surly sometimes, and he doesn't laugh much, but underneath, he's really a sweet person. Laura, I love you like my very own daughter. If things had worked out differently, I was hoping to adopt you. Happy 8th birthday, Laura. Your friend forever, Mary. Once he finished reading, James asked Laura, You're 11 now, aren't you? Assuming the letter was 3 years old, that would be the only logical calculation. Laura replied with a frown. How rude! Treating me like some sort of old lady. I just turned 8 last week. It was just a question. Sorry. So Mary really was alive. Or at least, she was alive 3 years ago. The thought made his eyes sting with warm tears. But she doesn't say anything about Silent Hill in the letter. You really don't get it? Laura spoke like a teacher scolding a clumsy student. She says she's in a quiet, beautiful place, right? Mary talked about Silent Hill all the time. She even showed me a bunch of pictures. She always said she wanted to come back, so that's why she's got to be here. It was childish reasoning. It was only natural, though she seemed mature for her age. Underneath it all, Laura was just still a child. To an adult, a quiet, beautiful place implied a far different meaning. I got another letter. If you saw it, then you'd understand. There's another one? Where is it? Laura frowned as she dug through her pocket. I must have dropped it. Laura? Was she trying to pull yet another trick? Where'd it go? Before James could say anything, Laura dashed out of the restaurant, leaving him with the letter addressed to her. James hurriedly tried to chase her, but she had been swallowed by the darkness that filled the hallway. A quiet, beautiful place. That's where Mary said she'd be. Honestly speaking, that couldn't mean any place other than heaven. Laura just turned 8 last week, but that was impossible. Mary supposedly died 3 years ago. But if what Laura said was true, then she had to still be alive. Nothing made sense. Mary's supposed to be... It's no use. It was too confusing to make any sense. James returned to room 312 with heavy footsteps, as if his despair clung to his feet like lead. He refused to acknowledge Mary's death. If she didn't die 3 years ago, why shouldn't she be alive and well right now? But if she wasn't, then all his effort would have been for nothing. That can't be it. James shook his head in an effort to rid himself of those dismal thoughts. The message on the hotel map was written in Mary's handwriting. She came here. She didn't die in the hospital. She became healthy and was discharged. That would fit perfectly with what Laura said. He remembered the videotape in his coat pocket, the tape he'd forgotten that held memories from all those years ago. Maybe there was something more to it. Maybe it held another message from Mary. Maybe, after the incident that had left Silent Hill in its current state, all the hotel staff and guests had to evacuate. In the rush to leave town, Mary might have been forced to leave the tape behind. She could have recorded over it, as a means to inform James of where they were taking refuge. It was a rational possibility. That has to be the reason, James thought, his steps becoming a little lighter. But there was still one thing that didn't fit. Laura. If all the bizarre phenomena in Silent Hill were real, Then how could someone as young as Laura wander around the monster-infested streets without a care in the world? Having reached room 312, James inserted the key into the door. No matter what was true, he'd never know until he watched this tape. It had to hold at least some of the answers. Room 312 was a deluxe twin guest room. Although it wasn't quite as fancy as a suite, it was almost more than they could afford on James's salary. Unlike the dim corridors of the rest of the hotel, 312 was brightly lit by soft light that shone through the fog and poured in through the south-facing windows. When he was here with Mary, the room seemed to overflow dazzling sunlight, and you could see the glittering surface of Toluca Lake just outside the window. The whole room felt as if it belonged in a dream. Now the muted light made the room feel quiet and somber. The television was located on the wall by the windows, with an armchair facing it. James slid the videotape into the VCR and took a seat in the armchair. After a flurry of crackling static, the video began to play. The screen displayed an image of Mary. "Are you still filming? Come on," Mary said as she walked in front of one of the windows in room 312. Her face was lit with a cheerful smile. Sitting down in a nearby chair, she gazed out the window. "I really don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so quiet and peaceful." She turned to look at the camera. "You know what I heard down at the drugstore? They said that this whole area used to be a sacred place. I think I can see why." Her expression turned sentimental. "It's a shame we have to leave so soon." She stood up again. "Please promise you'll take me here again someday, James." As she spoke, Mary broke into a fit of violent coughing. Suddenly, the camera flew into disorder, shaking and blurring until the picture went out altogether. With his eyes still glued on the television screen, James realized that he was sobbing. They were not tears of comfort nor happiness. The flood of tears was like blood spilling from a wounded heart, from an open wound pouring out a black deluge of horrid memories. The images on the screen began to overlap with the images in his mind. This is their home, James and Mary's love nest. The window curtains are closed. The room is dark. Mary lies on their bed. She coughs painfully, staring at Mary, standing outside her bed, reaching for her with trembling hands. She gasps, a choked noise that barely makes it out of her throat. Her anguished coughs have stopped. The only sound is her stifled cries. Her weak, frail body grows still. He carries her lifeless body in his arms. Buried deep in the armchair, James let out a heartbroken moan. The reality was too much to bear. He remembered everything. He hadn't heard the sound of the door opening behind him. "James?" He was so buried in grief, he was deaf to the voice calling out to him. Laura walked in the room. She spoke in a cheerful voice. "James, there you are. When you weren't in the restaurant, I had to look all over the place for you." She walked over to stand by his side, but when she looked at his face, her expression turned to puzzlement. "James, why are you crying? Didn't you find Mary?" "Laura, Mary's not here," James managed to wring out in a low voice. "Mary's not anywhere in this world anymore." "What?" "She's dead." "No, you're lying." "It's the truth." "She died because she was sick?" Laura whispered, tears spilling from her eyes and rolling down her shocked face. Standing up from the chair, James crouched on one knee and looked Laura in the eye. "No. She's dead because I killed her." For a moment, Laura could only stare at James in disbelief. Without warning, she reached her arm back and slapped him across the face. James made no move to stop her.
Idiot! Why'd you do something like that? You killer! Give her back! Give Mary back to me! I knew it! I knew you didn't care about her! I hate you, James! I hate you! I hate you!
She added another punch with every word, the force of her fists adding strength to each blow. She spoke in a small, feeble voice.
Mary was always waiting for you.
Having run out of energy for yelling, she collapsed into uncontrollable sobbing. James gently put his arms around her.
I'm so sorry. Mary, she... Let me go!
Laura ripped herself away from his embrace. She ran to the open door, glared back at James one last time with eyes filled with tears and hate, then dashed outside, slamming the door behind her.
Laura, I'm sorry,
he muttered to himself in the empty room. At the very least, he was grateful for a chance to tell the truth, even if she wouldn't fully understand. She was just a child. This was just too much pain for her to shoulder all at once. Noise began to blare from the radio in his pocket, but it wasn't the static that warned of a monster's approach.
The batter swings. The second base runner makes a dash for
According
third.
to a report released by the Census Bureau during the first half of the
Softest
year.
skin ever. We guarantee you'll be satisfied with it.
It was a chaotic storm of mixed voices. A baseball broadcast, a news station, a commercial, all playing over one another. Eventually, one single voice, the voice of a woman, waded through the turbulence.
James, where are you? I'm waiting. I'll always be waiting. Why won't you come see me? Do you hate me? Is that why you don't want to meet with me? James, please hurry. Are you lost? I'm right here. I'm so close. James, I want to see you again. Can you hear me? James.
That voice, it's... James stared at the radio in silent amazement. He could hear her so clearly. It was her voice. I wonder, are they still after me? Even after this long, Angela thought as she wandered the hotel's darkened halls. She was always being chased by those repulsive creatures, those ugly figures that seemed to embody the filthy desires of men. They pushed her to the ground and attempted all manner of indecent acts. The thought of those things made her hair stand on end, but the things that truly frightened Angela were the ones that pursued her all the way from her hometown. Surely, she was a wanted criminal. The police must have been searching for her right now. There was no way she could be arrested. How could she be blamed for killing them? They got exactly what they deserved. Mama didn't help me at all. She had to have known. How could she not know what was happening to her own daughter? If she did know, she pretended not to. I only did what I had to do. It was self-defense. I just couldn't stand it anymore. God will forgive me. I won't go to hell. They will. I don't care if they burn for eternity. She pictured her father and brother engulfed in flames, screaming in pain, begging for forgiveness. Forgiveness they'd never receive. Angela smiled. Her soft laughter echoed through the darkness. James finally decided to leave room 312, but the world that awaited him outside the door had completely changed. The once opulent hotel was now falling to pieces. The plaster on the walls was cracked and peeling. A fine layer of dust coated the floors, and the ceiling was almost hidden behind a wispy mesh of cobwebs. Even the back garden, which he could barely make out through the grimy windows, was neglected and overgrown. He had only been in the hotel room for a short while. James descended the stairs and walked through the second-floor hallway. He noticed a large figure sluggishly approaching him from the back hall. At first he thought it could be a four-legged animal of some sort, but as it drew closer, he saw that it was the same type of creature as the one that had attacked Angela in the labyrinth. This was the first time he'd encountered a monster since arriving at the Lakeview Hotel. The sight of the repulsive creature blocking his path made James's temper flare. "Stupid pest! I don't have time to mess with you right now. If it was anything like the last one, then killing this one should be easy." It was his amount of ammunition that really concerned him. While he still had plenty of bullets in his pocket, he couldn't afford to waste them by shooting randomly like he had up to this point. If only he could take it down with one shot. A plan quickly formulated in James's mind. He would shoot the monster once. If he got lucky and it died, then there would be nothing to worry about. If the creature lived, it would likely be damaged and weak enough for him to run around it and escape. The unsightly bed-fused monster crawled closer. James crouched down on one knee and carefully aimed the rifle. Relying on the minimal lighting, he set his sights on what he hoped was the creature's head and pulled the trigger. It stuttered and let out a horrific wail as the bullet tore through its flesh. The monster's legs folded underneath it, and it slumped to the floor. However, it still twitched and moved. Stepping around it, James was about to break into a run when he suddenly felt the monster's forearm clamp onto his ankle. A ghastly chill snaked up his spine at the repulsive touch of the cold, slimy hand. His rage and frustration reached a boiling point, and James began to brutally kick the monster in the head with his free leg.
"Get the hell off of me!"
Flipping around his rifle, he smashed the butt onto the monster's arm again and again. Finally, its claws released, and it lost its grip. It emitted a low moan as its body withered like a balloon losing air. This time, it was truly dead. James slid to the floor, still clutching tightly to his bloody rifle. His breath came in ragged gasps, and his heart was pounding inside his chest. The moment the monster grabbed him, he thought for sure he was going to die. After a few moments had passed, he forced himself back up onto his unsteady feet and began to hurry forward. That voice, the voice that came from the radio.
"I'm right here. I'm so close."
The voice still echoed in his heart. She was alive. She was somewhere in this hotel. Mary. Mary is going to die? You're joking, right? I'm very sorry.
But you're a doctor, aren't you? You're supposed to help people. Isn't there something you can do?
Please, sir, calm down. As a doctor, I promise to do everything I can. However, an effective treatment for her condition has yet to be discovered. How long does she have? It is difficult to say with certainty. It could be as soon as 6 months, or it could be 3 years from now. We simply have no way of knowing for sure. As he wandered through the decaying halls, that conversation from long ago resurfaced in James's mind. That was the moment when he had been condemned to despair, the ending to his happy life. Indeed, it was almost like he died before his beloved Mary, trapped in a living death that left him with nothing but a husk of a soul, and a heart that felt nothing but never-ending pain. It only grew worse with each day he had to watch his wife slowly waste away. His frustration swirled like a frigid storm, until it swelled into a cold mass of fury. James's search for Mary brought him to check each hotel room one by one. He delved into each unattended room and examined it top to bottom, looking into bathrooms, inside closets, and even under the beds. The further into the hotel he ventured, the more ravaged his surroundings became. It was like descending ever deeper into the depths of a degenerate mind. The darkness grew thicker as the lamps illuminating the halls began to dim. The air was so heavy that it became difficult to breathe. It was as if the atmosphere had solidified into a barrier, trying to prevent James from continuing any further. Far more troubling was the fact that the monsters seemed to be lurking in greater numbers. Their snarling cries echoed from their hiding spaces and blended together in a dreadful chorus. The entire hotel had become tinged with madness. After he'd finished checking all the rooms on the west wing, he returned to the hallway to find he somehow had wandered into the east wing. This sort of bizarre room shifting was nothing new. The strange phenomenon only held his attention for a brief moment. However, something even stranger occurred, and James stepped out into what appeared to be a basement. The corridor was flooded with murky, waist-deep water. Seeking to escape from the waterlogged maze, James entered into a spacious bar, passed through the bar's kitchen, then exited into a passage that led to the hotel's back door. According to his calculations, he should be going the exact opposite way he came. If he continued through the boiler room and the storeroom, he'd be able to climb back into the east wing's ground floor. As he opened the final door, James saw a staircase just like he expected, but there was something off about the scene before him. Unlike the rest of the basement, there wasn't a drop of water to be found anywhere. Not only was it dry, but the air had suddenly become scorchingly hot. It was bright enough that his flashlight was rendered useless, almost as if James were standing outside in the midday sun. Stepping over to the landing, he peered up the stairs. It was a fire. Dancing red tongues of flames licked the walls and ceiling and slowly spread down the steps. He could make out the shapes of two bodies nailed to the wall, a middle-aged and a younger man. Though they dangled amidst the flames, their skin was completely free of burns. In fact, it seemed as if the two were still alive. The scene brought to mind the image of sinners being tortured in the flames of hell. A person was slowly descending the endlessly long staircase, like a messenger coming down from heaven. However, it felt more as if the world had been turned upside down once the person emerged from the black abyss. It was Angela. The breeze awakened by the flames whirled in her hair in a way that seemed almost mystical. Her brightly lit face was filled with excitement, but also tinged with sadness. "Mama, I finally found you. You're the only one left. Maybe now I can finally be happy," Angela said as she stepped closer to the flames. James involuntarily took a wary step back. "Why are you running away?" With a gentle but clearly disturbed smile, Angela reached out and touched James's cheek. Suddenly she froze. "You're not my mama." She quickly snatched her hands away and retreated several steps back, as if she was afraid of him. "James, it's you." Her face showed embarrassment, but her voice was still filled with disappointment and disgust. "I take it you haven't found your mother yet, have you?" James asked. It felt incredibly strange to be holding a casual conversation while standing amidst a blazing fire, but he wasn't concerned. The far too sudden outbreak, the fact that the blaze hadn't spread beyond this room, the fact that neither he nor Angela had been burned. He was beginning to notice how unnatural the whole thing was. This was just another projection of the mind, a vivid illusion masquerading as reality. Angela's delusion. Her face turning grim, Angela replied, as if she were only talking to herself. She began to pour out all the hatred that had accumulated in her heart. "Mama, you knew, didn't you? The things Daddy and Brother did to me every night. But you still pretended not to notice." Finally, beginning to understand the extent of Angela's pain, James continued to listen in silence. "So I left to go looking for my mama. After she left Daddy and ran away from home." Tears began to stream down Angela's face. They were not tears of longing for her beloved mother. They were tears of bitter frustration, the tears of someone who was left all alone, and who only desired revenge for all her mistreatment. "I already took care of Daddy, and my brother too," she joyfully announced while she sobbed. "I took care of both of them, with that knife." She was talking about the knife she had left behind in the mirror room at the Woodside Apartments. That was the weapon she had used to carry out her crime.
Angela, I think you need to forgive them. Not just them, but yourself too. You hypocrite! How dare you say something like that?
Angela glared at James so intently the fire seemed to blaze brighter.
What about you? Will you forgive me? Save me? Will you protect me forever? Will you tell me you love me?
James couldn't bring himself to answer. His silence was met with another harsh verbal onslaught.
See? I knew it. You're just another person, dragged to this town to rot for their sins. And you think you can lecture me about forgiveness? Don't make me laugh.
Angela turned her back to him and began to climb up the stairs. She stopped, as if suddenly remembering something. She looked over her shoulder and spoke.
I'd like my knife back.
James stared at Angela, as if he could uncover her true intentions just by looking. He shook his head. I can't do that, Angela. I don't have it. Angela returned his gaze, her eyes filled with suspicion. Are you sure you're not just keeping it for yourself?
No, I would never want to kill myself.
At this answer, Angela gave a heavy sigh. James had hoped to read Angela's thoughts, but it seemed that she was the one who had seen right through him instead. She'd seen something James himself wasn't even aware of. Angela left, her soft laughter echoing behind her. She was off to find her grave. The flames swelled and raged out of control, the unbearable heat forcing James back into the waterlogged hallway. He fled from the blazing inferno, and from Angela's harsh words.